Hello, everyone. It is officially 11:15, so I'm going to kick off this AMA without further ado. The reason why no sound was coming, everyone, is that I was just waiting for everyone to kind of jump on and for the time to set. So we are here. Hopefully you all can hear me. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can. Otherwise, this is yet another weekly chat. We have a bunch of updates for you all, obviously. This morning at 10 a.m., we did our first official reset of the Lamina 1 testnet and have a bunch of cool updates and quests and how-to blog posts that are going to be rolling out shortly that basically tell you all how to get back up and running, kind of explain a little bit about, what this testnet means for you. But before we do that, I'm going to hand over the mic to our CTO, Will Carter, once again, and he's going to give you all just a couple of updates fresh from engineering. We've all been working super hard this morning, so I'm excited to hear from them as well. Will, are you there?
I am. Sorry, I had to find the unmute button. Yeah, great to see you all again. Got some good news this week outside of the Testnet Reset, but wanted to cover the Testnet Reset first. So as we discussed last week, we did decide to do our first reset this week. That was done a few hours ago. And we did this for a few reasons. Number one, we ran into some node sync errors last week that I think got a couple people's validators or shut them down because they couldn't sync with the network. We did address those issues and we didn't need to reset the network because of it, but we did think it would be good to start with a fresh install. The main reason we're doing the testnet reset this week is to get ready for EVM compatibility, which should be exciting because this is where we get to start playing with stuff on the chain rather than just sending coins back and forth to each other all day. So we'll be putting I think we have an EVM quest coming up in a few weeks, EVM quest week coming up in a few weeks, where we'll incentivize you guys to play around on there, hopefully interact with some cool projects. But the other good news this week is that we finally have a Testnet Explorer that is live and available to the community. It is early phase, so it's still being tested internally, but we thought it would be good just given how many people were hoping to be able to access this functionality. We thought it would be good to open it up to the community to help us test. So I don't believe it's in the hub just yet, but maybe Chris Mahoney, if you want to drop a link to it in the chat, it will eventually be in the hub, hopefully later today.
Yep.
And again, that's going to be an Explorer only for the C chain. The P and the X chains will not have Explorers, at least not in the short term.
Yeah,
What are you saying, Chris?
we very specifically poured over the available ones for use, and I think this was definitely the ideal. I think a lot of people will enjoy using it.
And we are talking to, I think I mentioned this last week, but just to reiterate, we are talking to a third-party explorer. Obviously, we don't want to only have our own internal explorers. We'd like to have some ecosystem partners also develop explorers and provide them just in terms of decentralization. So we are talking to partners to provide third-party explorers, and those would actually cover the P and X chains as well as any subnets that are developed on Lamina 1. So that's all, I hope, going to be welcome news to you guys. Other updates are that we're working away at fixing some more of those wallet bugs. We've done some initial UX studies, which I thought were pretty successful, and maybe we can share those in an upcoming call. And then we're really focusing on what's coming up next on the engineering side, which is, again, making that EVM fully compatible and performant, and then allowing people to spin up their own EVM subnets with interoperable messaging. So being able to move assets between subnets. So those are the big features that are on our roadmap at the moment. And then we're constantly going to be doing some baseline improvements to the code base as we go along. So updates for node operators. I'm not sure. Do we want to do those now, Casey, or do we want to do those later?
Yeah, we could do some updates for node operators. Anything that you want to get out now, I think, yeah, let's make the announcements. And then I've got a bunch of questions from the community lined up that we can kind of go through step by step as well. But if you want to do a top line overview, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, so what does the testnet reset mean for all of you guys? So basically, obviously, the Genesis block has started over from scratch. So your existing balances are going to be reset to 0 for L1. If you were deploying smart contracts on the EVM prior to the reset, you're going to have to redeploy those contracts. It's a completely fresh new slate. Another thing to keep in mind, if you're running nodes, you're going to have to basically shut down your node and restart it and resync with the new network. That will be done. I think we're sending around a blog post, or we published a blog post that gives you instructions. It's a very simple process. You basically just download the new node binary and then start it up. It should already contain the new config files for the new network. From the validator's point of view, we're expecting, I think, the first cohort to come online next week. And then, like I said in the previous call, it's going to be a gradual onboarding process from there. I don't have a fully determined and fleshed out timeline for that yet. Some of it's going to depend on how the first cohort goes, and some of the performance testing results we get out of that first cohort. But we will keep you updated as soon as I have like a really concrete timeline. I'll start reaching out to the people on that node list with all the people who applied with the timeline for when you can get onboarded. But like I said in the last call, it's likely that outside of a handful of validators who are, we've gone through and we've determined our I think we talked about parameters last week, which we do have a suite of different characteristics we look for in the cohorts, the early cohorts that we're going to choose. Some of them being like how active you are in the community, how much you've been helping others, your geographic location. We're looking for a geographically distributed set of nodes. What type of node you're operating, whether it's a highly performant dedicated node or just something you're running kind of on the side, or it's a shared resource, and just your experience in general running nodes. So we're taking all that into consideration, as well as the order in which you applied to run a node. And that's how we're making our cohort decisions. So yeah, once I have a more fleshed out timeline, I'll definitely share that with the community. Please be patient. It's looking like outside of the first maybe cohort or two, it's going to be like 6 weeks minimum until we get any large scale onboarding done.
Great. Thanks so much, Will. So I think that's great for anyone looking for sort of some reset directions on how to resync your Lamina One wallet and node for Testnet 2.0. I just dropped it in the chat. We'll also be sharing with the community across social, everything after this AMA. So peek into that if you want to get a head start on us. Otherwise, we're going to run through a couple of questions that I've pulled from the community. Definitely seems like a lot of the community, this is everyone's first testnet reset ever, which is exciting. It shows that we've got a lot of people who've never been through this before. But kind of on that note, the first question that I wanted to address is from follower Rolex. And a couple of other people have sent similar questions, just asking, wait, does this mean that testnet is over?
No way, it's just begun. No, we've still got at least a few more months for testnet. So this is just the first of what will be at least one more reset, but potentially a couple. There's a couple of reasons why we do these resets generally. Some of it's to clean up spam. I mean, a lot of our validators aren't being incentivized. So if the network gets too large in terms of like the state of the chain, then we might reset the network. If we need to do a major code fix or a major update, we might need to reset the network. But as we said, testnet is a development environment. It's not meant to be 100% stable. That's kind of like the big distinction between testnet and betanet. Once we hit betanet, things are expected to be pretty stable, and at that point, we shouldn't be expecting any chain resets. So yeah, testnet is still live, still happening, and will be live for at least a few more months.
Awesome. That answers Jetame's answer, which asks, till when will testnet run? Any deadline? So yeah, stick with us for a couple of more months. This is just the beginning, and get ready for more resets. Again, if this is your first reset, follow the directions that I just shared in the chat, and we can kind of follow those directions every time we reset. I have another question from Paradox Colo Bit, who asks, after resetting testnet, does our C chain, P chain, and X chain address change or not?
Yeah, it's a good question. No, your addresses do not change. You just need to reset your wallets, and there are instructions for how to do that in the blog post for releasing. It's a very simple process, both for the web wallet and for MetaMask, assuming you're willing to, on the web wallet side, assuming you're willing to save your key store file, and then use that to restore your account rather than having to type in the 24 words. So that's all you need to do in order to move over to the new testnet. Just reset your wallets, both on MetaMask and the web wallet. And again, the instructions will be in that blog post, and it's just a few simple steps.
Awesome. So King Proback asks, can new nodes join testnet now or not?
Okay, so nodes can join testnet. Validators cannot join testnet yet. The distinction being a validator is a node that's participating actively in consensus. Regular nodes that are not validators are basically just read-only nodes. They're just keeping up with the network, and they're generally used for people who want to verify their own transaction results. So like some people who don't want to trust like an explorer usually run their own nodes so they can verify transactions against them. But more often, the people who are running these nodes that aren't validators are usually going to be developers, so that they have a dedicated RPC endpoint to which they can point their apps. So unless you're developing actively, or you're really interested in running your own nodes so you can validate your own transactions, there's no reason to run a node at this point in time until you join a validator cohort. So yes, you're able to run a node. It's only going to be a read-only node for now. And whether or not you want to run a read-only node for now and kind of tie up your computer resources doing that is really up to what you're using the node for. If you're not using it for anything like developing, then it might be worth holding off running that node until you can join a validator cohort.
To be clear, as our sort of community quest master, there are no incentives for running a read-only node on the Lamina 1 testnet at this time. So consider that. We've got a couple of multiple questions kind of asking, similarly, what's the status on onboarding new cohorts? When, if ever, will the node token request form reopen? And any new developments for hopeful validators? Again, Will, you said that, don't expect really to, we're not going to be expecting to be widespreadly onboarding people for another, I guess, 6 weeks. But if there's anything else you want to add here, those are probably some of our most common questions this week that the community has fielded.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate why we're doing this. It's not that we don't want you all to be node operators. It's just, we had about 1,200 people request to be validators, and it's just an immense amount of dev support that we need to provide when we're trying to actively kind of develop the network itself. So one of the reasons we're doing things this way is so that early cohort, which again, we're choosing some of the more active, helpful members in the community to onboard in that cohort, they're going to help us develop documentation that will make it so that all of the later cohorts will be able to onboard without so much support. So that's why we're doing this. And yeah, eventually, we probably will reopen the application form. But again, that's weeks, at least over a month down the line. We really want to make sure that the onboarding process is, as seamless as possible, and that we have some of those early benchmarking results from a fairly known list of nodes before we start introducing a lot of open variables by letting anyone who wants to be a validator in. So it'll come, but yeah, it's going to be 6 weeks probably.
Awesome. So Amy Chains and TCP are asking, does this reset mean that Quest will reset too? And after the L1 reset, can I do all the tasks on Crew 3? Now, I'll take this one again. Quests are not resetting. It's just a reset of the Lamina 1 testnet. So all of your Crew 3 XP will remain the same. After the L1 reset, feel free to go back and do all the tasks on Crew 3. If we have new people onboarding who weren't with us for the first 4 weeks of testnet, they can still do all of those initial intro quests that we've done on the new Lamina 1 testnet 2.0. The sort of Crew 3 and testnet are operating completely independently. So yeah, all of the XP, all of the sort of community engagement is continuing to be tracked and is not restarting along with the testnet. So don't worry, all of your hard work is still being tracked and still being considered for our future incentivization ops. Next question is from Anthony. So Anthony asks, are there any ready-made projects in the testnet at the moment, except for the wallet? Mahoney, I think you said that you were going to take this one.
Yeah. So it looks like just from the traffic on before the reset that there was a lot of interesting stuff that people are trying out. A couple of things that I'm looking forward to doing in order to basically dog food our gaming SDK, starting with Unity and C#, is actually attempting to support an economy in a very old game, an old MMO, with Lamina 1 tokens underneath on an open source server. So that's sort of the goofy R&D mentality that I usually have, is kind of, curiosity gets you somewhere to innovate. But also, I think we made great strides in the past couple of weeks with that Unity SDK as well. And specifically around conceptually providing the tools that creators are going to need that they haven't been provided up till now. I do see it very similar to some of the gaming SDKs I've seen out there, like Anchor and some others, Morales, but you always end up at a point where you have to go sign up and get a node or an app ID or a secret key, and then you're on a platform again. So I think people will be excited that we're taking those tools, some very battle-hardened MIT licensed ones, and wrapping those in very thin containers for game developers that may not be used to Web3 at all. Joel, our SDK lead, and myself come from Web2 development into Web3 kind of on a rocket. But we've been very considerate about the fact that the user experience has been very poor with these tools, services or not. A lot of the open source tooling is amazing, and it's because the community helps build it out. So anyway, that's exciting. There will be opportunities as part of, maybe you can speak to it, Casey, but as part of kind of early access, once we have something we're comfortable with putting out in the small public square, we'll be looking for the equivalent to node runners that are on the game dev side, that have made Web3 games and are interested in utilizing game engines like Unity, and maybe not through a web browser or a mobile modality. So again, if you're interested, there's channels to show your interest, but we really like to interact with the community sooner than later on that. It'll be really fun.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really exciting things coming up for the creator side of things. I think in general, we've been focused, on wallet, on node operation, on validation. But yeah, coming down the timeline for testnet, obviously are going to be, EVM functionality, NFTs, the Unity SDK. We're kind of just getting started. So again, it's going to be really exciting, and the testnet's going to have a lot more fun things to play with over the next couple of weeks. So get ready, guys. That's why we did this reset. To kind of go back to the questions a little bit, I wanted to answer a question from Anas, and also like a million other people out on the internet right now who are all asking, is there an airdrop confirmed for testnet users? Will, I'm going to let you take this, but the short answer is no.
I mean, the short answer is pretty good. We would like to find some way to incentivize community activity, but no, currently there's no plan to do an airdrop, and we don't know what that incentivization will look like at this point in time. But it is something, we're actively looking into.
All right. So AB786 asks, how TRX history? How can you tell when someone has sent you a testnet token? This is obviously a place for us to kind of plug our new Explorer, but if we want to kind of go into the details on that a little bit further, I think that this is our place to do that.
Is Chris Pearson in the call? You would be a good one to answer this. I will say yes. I mean, this is obviously why we built the Explorer, is so that we could provide you guys this functionality, specifically within the C chain, where a lot of the action's likely going to be happening. So yeah, when and if you want to verify whether or not a transaction was successfully received by you, you could look in the wallet, and unless there's a bug, you should see your balance update in the wallet. And eventually, we'll also support the ability, I think, to actually see those transactions kind of themselves itemized within the wallet itself. I think you might already be able to see that in MetaMask. But yeah, if it's not in the wallet, then you can always go to the Explorer and you can search for your own wallet address, and it'll show you a list of all the transactions you've ever sent or received. So yeah, that's why we made the Explorer. There's a lot of cool other functionality within the Explorer that we're still playing around with and fleshing out. But at a baseline, like, that is kind of one of the primary uses of the Explorer.
All right. So Jacko Girl asked a question asking, it's kind of a long one, so bear with me, guys. In the Crew 3 guide, you talk about XP being awarded based on not just completing Crew 3 quests, but also on quality engagement. Could you clarify what that means, and that being engaged and helpful in the community will help people who can't complete certain exclusive quests? I get that people are worried about not being able to complete a quest will hurt their standings, but I think you've made it clear that there are ways to do more than make up for not being able to complete this or that quest. Also, could you post your stance on cheating, i.e. people trying to get around secret codes or getting people to give them codes? Doesn't matter. And what's the penalty for both the cheaters and those who enable them? So I'm going to take this question. Yes, as a lot of you have noticed, and especially a lot of the people who come to our AMAs are the people who are super highly engaged and with us and aren't just airdrop hunters or bots or scammers, for example. We are very much tracking who is being helpful on the server, who is answering questions, who's engaging with interesting thoughts and insights. We basically have a list of most active users on Lamina One. Now, when we are selecting winners for our future Crew 3 quests, when we are selecting members of the community for future ambassador programs or incentives, we will basically take a combination of the Crew 3 XP list as well as our kind of like Black Ops dossier of people who are being kind of superheroes for us on the server. And those are the people who will make our short list for, future ambassador ops, incentivization opportunities, etc. In terms of not being able to complete a quest to hurt your standings. So for example, we had a lot of questions this week about, well, how do I redeem my XP for the white paper AMA? And basically, if you weren't with us in October 2022, when we did the white paper review, you can't get that XP. That said, you're not going to be able to get XP for every single quest that we roll out. Some quests will incentivize node operators. Some quests will incentivize creators. Some quests will incentivize OG L1 community members. Some quests will incentivize new community members. Now, if you participate with a combination of participating in our quests and being helpful and initiating great discussions on the server, that's how you sort of get on our radar and will be considered for these future incentivization opportunities. As for cheaters, and as for people sending abusive messages via DM to the Lamina One core team or our moderators, know that in addition to having a short list of really helpful users, we also, unfortunately, have had to start compiling a blacklist of users that we can see are clearly cheating, are clearly bots, or have sent us links to unsavory content. So if you do that, know that you will be blacklisted and you will not be selected for future ambassador opportunities, incentivizations, and you're definitely not going to win our end of testnet giveaway. So hopefully that's clear. I don't like that I have to say that and chide some of our followers. By and large, the community is super helpful and super positive, but we do have a couple of bad actors, and yes, we are monitoring them. And also note that if you do anything super abusive on the server, we can also boot you. So thank you.
You'll get coal in your stocking as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hate that I have to make these warnings, but I've had some unfortunate DMs sent to me this week while trying to help people out with their quests, which is no fun for anyone. Back to the questions, though. So Anas asks, oh no, not Anas. 3DX and ParadoxColo.bit are asking, will there be NFTs on Testnet?
There are NFTs on Testnet.
That's what I was going to say.
I'll jump on this one, whether it's a grenade or not. So kind of my main focus currently, having transitioned from the initial web resources we needed, has been to assist with the Unity SDK functionality, creating some demo functionality and applications for you guys to use, but then also in the process minting ERC 721 and already having delved into 1155, even though that's kind of roadmap territory. But the 721s that everyone's used to, and for the reason that it's not just people making video games, but we've got I see Tony lurking in here. He's very excited, Tony Parisi, about music NFTs. we're all about every creator of every kind that just likes to bring new things into the world. So that's been a high priority. The first thing was the test net, but we've been able to deploy several smart contracts that we expect to act as a base for initially the Unity SDK interaction via Web3. And we'll be using Ethereum underneath for that, which is it's a very clean, easy to use C# library. There's some code generation functionality in there for you related to creating a smart contract if you're not familiar with Solidity as a language, because it's not used anywhere else. What I'm really looking to do is erase friction from coming from you create a smart contract 721, that's your NFT, it's a car for a game. I want that to be able to code gen as much as possible into something that you can bring into Unity, drag and drop. That's critical for me because I'm efficiently lazy, but it's expected from the community, not just from game developers, but from people that have wanted to do this stuff and just haven't had the months of time it takes to absorb it all. So a very emphatic yes, and I'll hop into the NFT channel more often. I'm hoping we can get a developers channel in here too, to jump into, so I don't just bug you guys in general. But I would be very interested in discussing with those that are interested in minting NFTs on Lamina One about their use cases, about their projects. I've had a few people reach out and start to, allude towards what their thoughts are. We're super interested in what you want to do with this network that we're not thinking of off the bat, and supporting what you're definitely going to need as a minimum. So yeah, I guess I just put my NFT hat on.
Awesome. And yeah, that's kind of, you guys are probably noticing that we've been rolling out quite a bit of surveys over the last couple of weeks as Quest opportunities. That's sort of our way of being able to kind of ask you guys in a more organized format, away from the sort of like constant churn of the Discord, to really see, what tools do you need? What are you most interested in launching on Lamina One? All of that data is super interesting, and is being used like sort of directly to inform our future feature sets and tool sets. So to everyone who's been filling out those surveys, thank you so much. And they are really, like, we've been having a ton of really interesting internal meetings, kind of taking all of that data and all of those ideas and figuring out how we can work those into our roadmaps and stuff. So that's kind of like what Testnet is all about, and it's super exciting. So I've got a follow-up question from Amy Chains, who just read through our Medium post about how to reset our account. And they ask, I don't see anything special except connecting via our current key file or 24 words password. Is there anything else? I just want to make sure that there's not a lot of confusion with that blog post.
Is the question, is there anything else they need to do?
Yeah, but is there anything else that they need to do except for connecting their current key file or 24-word password?
No, so just make sure that you've deleted the old saved account. Obviously, if you're going to use your key store file to recover, make sure you download that key store file before you delete the old one. And then once it's deleted, you just reuse that key store file or your recovery phrase to set your account back up. Cool. And that should be it.
Awesome. Amy Chains asks also, so what's our current timescale for launching the Lamina One blockchain itself? Just kind of moving forward from testnet, what can people kind of expect? We don't have to give them a full roadmap right now, but can we kind of give people a sneak peek on roughly what's going to happen after testnet?
Sure. I mean, the blockchain itself is currently live now, and it's again live in a testnet kind of context, so it's in active development. where we're going to be adding some of those primary functionalities, either directly into the L1 or built on top of it. And those will be the capabilities you'll see in our white paper. BetaNet is when we hope to have a baseline of a couple of those key metaverse services that we outline in the white paper, live in some fashion, as well as the blockchain being pretty stable. And that'll, we're hoping to have BetaNet live for, I like to see BetaNets live for at least 2 to 3 months, just so we can catch any major bugs, because BetaNet's really where you want to see not a whole lot of active development, risky development on the L1 itself. I think BetaNet should be as close to mainnet as possible, notwithstanding some major bugs that need to be patched. But yeah, so BetaNet in terms of economics and in terms of functionality should be relatively close to what you'll see at mainnet. And again, it'll last probably 2 to 3 months, but we'll release a more concrete timeline later on. This is just kind of back of the envelope road mapping for you guys. A lot of it will depend on some of the partners we bring in and kind of what their needs are and what what type of functionality they require at mainnet. But yeah, like we'll provide, I think, a little bit more information and maybe a more detailed roadmap relatively soon. But I mean, the goal is to have mainnet up and running well before the end of the year. But again, like a lot of this will depend on partners, whether they need certain functionalities at a bare minimum prior to that mainnet launch. So no promises at this point in time.
Awesome. I'm getting a bunch of questions in the feed right now from people who filled out our previous validator form and are wondering, when you guys are ready to onboard new validators onto the platform, what exactly will happen? What exactly do they need to watch out for? And again, I'll answer this question. So basically, we're going to be launching like a private Discord channel for just our validators, and basically slowly onboarding people into that private channel. So basically, when you're selected as a validator, we've got your emails, right? Obviously, if you filled out the form, we've got your email, we've got your information. So we'll send you an email. We'll add you to that private group. That private group will have instructions pinned to the top that tells you, how to get back up and running as a validator. And then you'll be in a private channel with just other approved validators who can help you out, right? We want to make sure that we're giving our validators a channel that's free of spam, free of sort of like beginner entry level questions, just so that they can really focus and be supported on that. So yeah, if you're in that first batch of 1,100 people who filled out that token request form, just keep an eye out for an email. Keep an eye out for when you're added to a private Discord group, and we'll onboard you from there. I think as we get closer to being able to do that, as Will said, that'll probably take like at least 6 weeks to kind of open it up even broader. But as we're doing that, we'll keep you posted in Testnet updates channel is the best thing to be checking on, what our timeline is, how new validator onboarding is going and all of that. So yeah, kind of a long-winded answer, but basically email, private group, we will keep you posted. Kind of to close out, unless anyone has any additional questions, and if you do have any additional questions, drop them in the chat now. Mahi12345 asked via our AMA questions channel earlier this week, sort of a top line question that we get asked a lot, and I thought it was a good closing question, but he asks, what do we think is our strongest advantage for Lamina One that we think will make our team lead the market?
It's such a good question. I'll give my perspective. I don't know if anyone on the team wants to follow up with their own perspective. Sure. But just based on me being in the space for a while, my answer would be, brand perspective and experience. I've seen a lot of these projects start up that are really highly technical solutions to problems that really aren't apparent or important to a lot of mainstream users. So I think for a lot of people, what Web3 desperately needs for them to come to the table is a compelling reason to use it, to deal with some of the UX hurdles and nightmares that Web3 generally forces them to jump through to onboard into these projects. So that's kind of what we focus on, is providing the infrastructure for people to really focus on creating enjoyable experiences that happen to tap into the unique capabilities of Web3. So, I'd like to see media and games that are primarily just enjoyable and fun as a primary focus. And then, any of the interesting governance or economic characteristics that come with an integration with Web3, I see those as bonus things that can enrich that experience, but shouldn't be the primary focus of that experience. So our founders and our C-suite team, they've all basically been leaders involved in building immersive experiences for decades. And so that's, I think, our superpower. We're really leveraging that experience and that perspective to try and bring a lot of new, interesting projects, brands, and users that have traditionally been Web3 skeptics to the table, given that we understand, their unique perspective, their needs, and we understand, the risks that they're taking by integrating with Web3 technology, because, it isn't without risks. So yeah, that's what I'd say. I'd say like we have a pretty uniquely qualified C-suite team that has, a pretty deep technical background, but also has, decades of experience really focusing on building these immersive experiences, working with some of the biggest companies out there.
Yeah, I would absolutely follow that up with my experience coming from game development and web development kind of blended together. I was extremely skeptical, not only skeptical of Web3, but resistant to it. Even to the point that when I interviewed, I made sure that I said, as long as I'm not the blockchain guy, I'm more than happy to come help, make this open metaverse a reality, because that's been the most important mission for me, just in general. It's not specifically the open metaverse, but it's been being able to empower creators with tools that they didn't know they had, or they were too complex, and we all live our lives day to day and don't have time, or maybe we can't afford an expensive headset to develop. So making those tools that I would use and I would want when this network is starting to support some of these experiences is really exciting. And I'll echo Will about the executive team, and also just all the way down the chain. The first time that I had met these folks in person, I could tell just by the tone of the white paper and the tone of everyone in the room that we were all on the same page about doing this for the right reason. And I haven't seen too many non-passion projects that share that belief. And unfortunately, those kind of get, shoved under the rug sometimes. So I don't think we're getting shoved under the rug with the team we've got, kind of really focusing on making sure that this is unique and innovative, and it's simple to use. So it has to be adopted potentially in the future by, those platforms that would normally try and take it over. That's my perspective.
Love that. And what a perfect way to close out this AMA. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. Again, we do these every week, every Friday at around roughly 11:15 a.m. Pacific. So in the meantime, I'm going to go back onto the channels, post our our new quests. We're going to drop a new set of quests related to the reset shortly after this AMA. I'll also drop the blog post for everyone to read through. And as always, just direct your dialogue to Testnet groups. Testnet updates is where you should go for sort of updates from the core team. Testnet discussion is where you can kind of talk about key tasks. If you're a node operator, we also have a separate node discussion channel that is a good place to kind of field those things. But yeah, I mean, in general, we'll see you there. We try to monitor as much as we can alongside our moderation team at Defiance. And also in general, noting the fact that we are watching carefully if any community members are experiencing any scammers, spammers, abusive messages, also let us know. We'll add them to the blacklist. I think in general, I'm super, super devoted to making sure that we have a healthy community. And so, yeah, let us know. We'll definitely be here to help you out. Finally, another reminder, there is no airdrop. We are not selling tokens, NFTs, testnet guides, nor can we validate any of the information in paid testnet guides that we're seeing online. So again, if you want the latest updates on testnet, go to our Discord channel, go to our website, go to our Medium blog post, and go to these AMAs and hear them directly from the source. And we'll do our best to continue supporting you. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.